Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class today. Thank you for joining me, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. I just appreciate you watching. Sorry about the early start this morning, everybody. You know, we got some things that we all have obligations to do, I guess, and I figured I'd rather just go ahead and start early instead of just not having one at all today, right? So you at least get some kind of live class today, as I promised you I would do for you. And today we're talking about the concept of community and building a community on social media and ways that we can do that, right? So the module in particular is about understanding your community. And this in general is a very sort of sociological, sort of psychological type of module, right? As we're kind of talking about social media in these sorts of ways, one of the things I notice is basically just how, we're talking about it in general from a technological point of view, right? It is an IT-based class, with the web prefix. And, we're kind of examining it, though, from the perspective of somebody who's been asked to be a social media manager for a business. Because, ideally, if you are, well, maybe not ideally, but if you are contacted or hired as a webmaster for a small business, one of the jobs that might also be put on your plate is to be a social media manager for that small business, right? Just because it is internet related, right? And so I think, being a successful social media manager and doing successful social media marketing in these sorts of ways, is an important thing for us to approach. And so as such, right, we get into these other areas that aren't all necessarily technological, right? And, again, this module is very highly sociological. It's very highly, to some degree, psychological, right? In terms of how we form relationships with people that we don't really know, with strangers, to build a community. And, I think one of the issues that we see oftentimes, right, is that many of the relationships that we see between social media content creators and individuals end up getting kind of parasocial, right? And when we think about the term parasocial, we can get into some technical definitions for it, but one of the things that we kind of, we can kind of summarize that idea as just feeling like you know a person that you don't know just because you've seen their content. Right, so when we get these social media personalities, influencers, if you will, a lot of the ways that they build community is sort of through these parasocial relationships, which, is less than ideal, right? Because what they're selling is technically themselves, right? Their own personality and their own lives is the product, basically. And so when we go into the idea of how we build a relationship, how we build a connection there, then what you end up seeing is, people kind of getting attached to that personality instead of to the ideas and actual content surrounding that personality. And that's where we get into those sort of parasocial relationships. So what I'd like to talk about more today when I'm talking about understanding community are some different ways that we can make connections with individuals that aren't necessarily based on personality, that are more based around content and creating a connection for a community that is idea related instead of personality related. And so that's the big goal here. So as we're kind of entering this idea of understanding community, our big overview is that different people have different personalities, goals, plans, and ideas of what an environment they're a part of should be. So when we're thinking about our social media community, one of the things that I like to do is I like to put it into context with a regular old community, right? With your neighborhood, for example. And if you're in a neighborhood, right, everybody in that neighborhood has different goals, has different plans, right? They have different ideas about what that neighborhood should look like, who they'd like to see, move into the neighborhood, for example. Right? And sometimes that is well intentioned, and sometimes it's not so well intentioned. Right? But it's just all of this conglomerate of individuals who all have different personalities, who all have different goals and plans. They're just kind of living together in this environment, and they want different things for that environment. Right? And sometimes these different things can be incongruous to one another. Right? It could cause some headbutting. And so at the end of the day, when we're talking about social media community, what we're talking about is basically a loose organization of individuals. So when we're thinking about building a community on social media, the big question that we want to ask ourselves is not just what do we do to organize a community, because this is an environment in which these people are a part of the environment. They're in the environment. So our direct influence is going to have minimal impact. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to inspire a group of people to organize, which is a completely separate thing, right? Because in general, like when we think about our neighborhood, right, or we think about anything, we see something that kind of looks like this, right? We got 3 different styles of dots here, different colors, but they're all just kind of mingling together, right? And these different dots here represent those different personalities, those different ideas, those different points of view that we talked about there in the previous slide. Everybody's just kind of intermingled. Right, everybody's neighbor, you might have different neighbors than other neighbors, and so everybody's just kind of intermingled. But the thing to notice about these dots here is that even though there's this group here where everybody's kind of intermingled, the people with the same ideas are kind of on an island unto themselves. Right, they're detached from the other people who share their points of view, who maybe see things that, the way that they do or what have you, right? For example, this individual here may not even know of the existence of this individual here. Right, and you can kind of think about that in context with your own neighborhood. Do you know the way the people feel about your neighborhood 2 streets over, down at the end of the road? Maybe they agree with you, maybe they disagree with you. Right, so when we're organizing our subgroups that are a part of our community, the goal then is to find a way to keep the community strong and find a way for each of the subgroups to use their point of views, to use their strengths to build the community as a whole. And so you can give them opportunities to do so. Right? So when we think about this in context with, say, social media, the red dots here might be artists. They might be artists in your community that want to see more art, or that want to make art, or, that's surrounding the sort of ideas and things that are in your community. right? The yellow dots, they might be, people that like to play video games and they want to, be able to play video games and come together and be a part of the community through what they like to do and through what they're interested in, right? That from their point of view, right, they have very different interests, creating art versus playing video games. But if we're able to group these, we're able to provide an environment in which we can group these different subgroups together, and allow them to take advantage of their strengths, we can in turn build a stronger overall group through the connections that are made in the subgroups. So this kind of gets into the idea of that we want to provide opportunities for our community to contribute, to interact in whatever way seems valuable to them. Right? So what exactly does this show us again? We're introducing a group. We have a pile of individuals. But each of these individuals have their own skills, their own strengths, their own ideas, their own likes, their own dislikes. So what do we do? Right? Just to kind of summarize all of that. What do we do? The internet, and by extension social media, gives us an opportunity, right? They can interact with us, and they can also interact with one another. So our goal then becomes to take the members of a community and allow them to divide themselves into subgroups. Right? We're not necessarily directly getting involved in the division of our community, but we can offer them different means to become a part of a subgroup, and then each subgroup can have a different investment into the community at large so that they're actually contributing to the overall message. Right? So it's not an interpersonal relation, it's not that parasocial sort of interpersonal relationship with the creator, so much as it is a shared bond between subgroups of a social media community based on an idea, based on an interest, based on something that they like, that is then in turn getting them together with other people and allowing them to interact with other people and create relationships there, and in turn building the overall community. Right, one of the ways that we can kind of think about that is, I'll show an example of Reddit a little bit later on. Right, a lot of content creators and a lot of brands in general have created Reddit pages, and the brand itself is more hands-off of the Reddit page, right? They just kind of allow the fan base to create content that's related to the special interest. And then they can get involved in Reddit in that sort of way to build up the community overall. And then, if they're smart about it too, they can reincorporate that Reddit into content to build the community even further, right? And, show people what's going on over here. So we end up with these groups that were incongruous, that were kind of just mingled together, and now they're segmented. They're still a part of a larger group, but you have people with similar interests that are able to connect with one another. So maybe you have a group of artists on one side that are, making fan art and making custom art for whatever, your community is about. Maybe you have a video game server, right? Or a Discord of, gamers that want to play together, and their connection, their bond is their interest in your community. Maybe you have, a community-run Facebook group where they sort of share memes and related articles and just sort of chat back and forth about, things that are related to your community and your content, right? And even though we've segmented these groups, by taking these individuals and putting them all together, we are in turn sort of amplifying their voices so that, we can get to a place where, these individuals are working together to get things done. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's see, where were we? We were talking about these different groups here. I think I had pretty much gotten everything out of my system that I wanted to say about the different groups here, so let's move on. Because there is more, right? Constructing these teams is valuable. But it's, not quite enough, right? So if we are too focused on constructing these individual teams, we lose sight of the whole, right? We lose sight of the larger infrastructure of the community. And so we run the risk of these different teams segmenting off, right? So we still want to be able to have what we call a unit of capability. So each of these teams that represent different ideas we can call those a unit of capability. And each of these units of capability, it's a team that's still a part of a wider community that strives for a common goal. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that these different teams, while they are, communities unto themselves, sub-communities, we want to ensure that they fit together like a completed jigsaw puzzle in an effort to, kind of make sure that our overall community is still intact. So the goal would be to take our platform and use it to facilitate communication between our subgroups, right? So the channels through which they communicate on or in all relate back to us. And then if we're smart about it, We can take the more involvement that we get from our community with specialized interests, and we can kind of put them at the center of community involvement. And this is going to push people down that funnel that we were talking about previously, right? When we were talking about brands and we were talking about, the idea of awareness going down to loyalty. And so if we can make these communities feel like they're a part of something bigger and feel like they have everything they need to have to be connected to not us as individuals, but ideas and likes and dislikes of this grander social platform, then we're actually kind of pushing them down the funnel to becoming a bigger, more loyal fan. Because at this point, right, they're not just fans, they're a part of it, right? And they're a part of building something bigger and creating something bigger in your community. So what I'd like to do here to kind of wrap up, and this is a bit of a shorter live stream, but it's fine. Like you get the point out of it is, one of the things that we see happening with modern YouTube is we see creators making a subreddit for their channel. And then users can contribute content to the subreddit that's based on their niche interests, right? If they're interested in art, if they're interested in comedy, if they're interested in gaming, whatever, right? They can contribute posts to the subreddit that are related to their interests, but they still connect back to the larger community idea of, what the channel is based around to begin with. Right? And then the content creator, if they're playing smart about it, right, can actually go through their own subreddit and feature this content to show that, hey, we have these other people out here with niche interests. You can come to the subreddit. You can contribute in these sorts of ways. And you can help build a community here that's, about what we like. And, one of the ones that I like to show here is for Mr. Captain Sparkles. So, Minecraft video game YouTuber, right? So our niche interest, kind of being the overall interest of Minecraft and video games. And it does, touch a little bit into personality. But we can see here, he's, quite successful on YouTube, been successful on YouTube for quite a long time. 11.4 million subscribers. If we look at the most popular video, 280 million views on the most popular video, which is a lot of views. Right, and so in order get the words out, with the ability to, kind of make the community feel more involved and more connected without kind of building this interpersonal, this parasocial sort of relationship, there's the Captain Sparkles subreddit. And if we go through here, we can see, all of these different subreddit posts that all have a different sort of interest to them that's relating back to the larger community, right? So for example, here, like this person is, has a little video of their cat. So they like their cat. So this, sort of builds community toward other individuals who are cat people. But this cat isn't just a cat. This cat is interested in watching Captain Sparkles videos. Right? And if we keep going through, here's, somebody relating this one scene from a video game play to another video game that they enjoyed. So they have, this connection with gamers. Some of these are just posted by the bot to be, direct posts from the YouTube. We have some memes that are related to And see, look, here's another cat, right? So we kind of see this community of cat people kind of emerging. Here we see, some art that was created by an artist in the community. Memes that were created by people in the communities. More art, right? Like we got art here that's related back, memes. So it's it's humor and it's art and it's cats and being able to contribute and share these with the larger communities. Right, you're kind of showing off what you're able to do at the same time you are making connections with other people that are a part of the community that have similar interests. And then in turn, right, if we look at the playlists here on the Captain Sparkles channel, we can find somewhere in here the subreddit. The subreddit playlist, where he goes through his own subreddit and he highlights things that were contributed by users. So not only do they get to share their work with people that are part of the community to build these sub-communities, but in turn, the creator goes through and they highlight certain parts of these subreddits, certain things that they liked, certain things that did well on the subreddit. So people who might not be on the subreddit, right? Because if we look at the subreddit here, the subreddit has 90,000 members, whereas the channel has 11 million subscribers, right? Some people that might not be on the subreddit but might want to be a part of these communities and contribute, they can do that as well. Make them aware that this environment exists so they can go try that out. And so that's really the extent that I have to discuss with you about the idea of creating community here. So we'll leave that here for today. If you have any questions, I don't think anybody's watching with me live. It is pretty early in the morning. If you have any questions and you're watching the recording, please contact me, send me an email or a Teams message and let me know. That's all that I have for you for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.